Welcome back to Detroit. Pissing me off, and we have 4 games remaining in the season in what has been perhaps the most dismal season that I've personally experienced as a Piston fan. Today we'll discuss which players will the Pistons bring back, which ones will be on the trade block, which ones will not be re-signed. Always keeping our fingers crossed for those draft lottery odds that will be happening here in a few weeks, and our chance to hopefully get Victor Wembanyama. So Tuesday night, the Miami Heat, and then we've got Brooklyn on Wednesday. We'll finish the last 2 games on the road. Friday, April 7th against Indiana, and then Sunday, April 9th against the Chicago Bulls. Player by player here. Let's discuss each one, see if they've got a role coming back next season. What role we see them in, whether it be in the G League, out of the NBA, a different team, etc. We'll discuss that here today. All right. Jalen Duren has been a beast in his rookie season, averaging a near double-double per game. And he's averaged over that since he's been a starter. Of course, he hasn't been starting recently. There's been a lot of controversy whether he should be starting over James Wiseman or not. I don't really want to get into that. There's a few games left. I think they should be playing together like 30 minutes a game. Jalen Duren, a very fine rookie campaign. Obviously, he's a cornerstone of the franchise. He should be the starting center for next season. All right, Cade Cunningham. The Pistons' future weighs heavily on the progression of Cade Cunningham. If he becomes the cornerstone franchise player that we all expect him to be, the Pistons make that leap for the play-in tournament next year. And perhaps even better, if things go their way in the lottery, free agency, and trades, etc., they can make a massive leap. Always keeping our fingers crossed here on Detroit. Pissed me off. Next up, Alec Burks. Now, Alec Burks has a team option, and I do believe they'll be exercising that option, or perhaps even extending that, as soon as he came back from injury in the beginning of the season, gave the Pistons a huge boost off the bench. In fact, he turned the Pistons into one of the better bench squads in the league this year. So Alec Burks, to me, a very essential veteran to keep on the franchise. Bring him in. He could be that guy, a stabilizing factor next to Killian Hayes coming off the bench. Next up, Hamidou Diallo. This is when things start to get a little bit tough here, because Hamidou Diallo, to me, is a guy I want to see bring back. If they can bring him back for a nice, $7 or $8 million a year, I think he adds that absolute fireball energy, fast break, transition, defensive type of player that we need off the bench. A real energy guy to really get things going for the Pistons when things are stagnant. And I thought he did a great job. When he was playing before his recent injury, he was really giving the spark and perhaps was the best player on the Pistons team there for a month stretch or so. So Hamidou Diallo, to me, is a guy, he's not going to be guaranteed playing time. He may not fit in every rotation, but I think he's a guy they're going to need. A guy, an insurance type of player for injuries. He is a world-class athlete. I think just having him at the off chance that he develops some kind of passable shot, this guy elevates himself into a very, very good player, but his shot looks busted. Another controversial player up next is Killian Hayes. Now, Killian Hayes, he's had like the tale of 3 seasons, basically. Started off atrocious, probably one of the worst NBA starts that I've ever seen from anyone, definitely on the Pistons. So they stuck with him, and then he got hot and had a stretch there for about 30, 40 games where he was looking like the type of player that we were hoping that he would be when he came into the league, drafted 7th overall. He then began to struggle, and things went south until once again recently, in the past 10 to 15 games, I would say, Killian Hayes has really stepped it up. We've seen a 20-point performance the other night. A couple of those where Killian Hayes is operating the most efficiently has been when he gets inside the lane and shoots his little short jumper. Short to medium range jumper, that's the name of the game for Killian Hayes. Of course, a fine ball handler. Still turning the ball over a few too many times, but his turnover ratio is still pretty solid. So I think Killian Hayes, as you see right now, flirting with about 10 points a game and 6 rebounds or 6 assists per game. Killian Hayes, I believe, will be, for all intents and purposes, the backup point guard next season. Now, I was hoping he could be much more than that, but at this point, I'm really just hoping for a good backup. Continue to develop on the defensive end, the fine passer that he is, and hopefully that medium range jumper becomes his focal point, and he shoots the 3, but shies away from shooting it in excess. But Killian Hayes, to me, backup point guard next year, next to Alec Burks at the 2 guard. All right, Jared Rhoden next up. Now, Jared Rhoden hasn't really shown much to me. Jared Rhoden went baseline and really went in hard for a slam dunk the other night against a big fella from Orlando. I like his athleticism. I like his potential. I think another year in the G League could be up in the future for him. Moving on, Isaiah Livers. At this point, Isaiah Livers, I don't know if he's the backup small forward / power forward. Livers has shown a little bit more aggressiveness offensively, which I think is going to be essential for his game. But he's also that guy that you can, sit in the corner and wait for the open look. So I think he definitely has a role on this team, but he hasn't lived up to his potential at this point. I think he's got a lot to grow in terms of being more assertive. He's heading in the right direction, and I think his athleticism he's been able to show is a little bit more than what we originally might have thought. Okay, James Wiseman. Now, so far to me, I've been very happy to see Sadiq Bey shipped out. I just think he didn't work out defensively in the contract that he was going to demand. So yes, it was worth taking a flyer on James Wiseman. Now, I get very excited to watch James Wiseman play. I think he's just a fabulous talent. That's why he was taken second overall by the Golden State Warriors in 2020. However, he's equally as frustrating to watch. Like, one thing I just can't stand is the way he sets picks. I mean, like, this guy has to be the worst pick setter in the entire NBA. It's just, it's difficult to watch. Sometimes he doesn't box out the way a big fellow should. But hey, he's giving you 13 points and 8 rebounds in about 25 minutes a game. I think he's done overall quite well, and he shows a great soft touch around the rim. If he can develop that medium range jumper consistently, face to the basket type of setups from the elbow to the free throw line, and use some of his dribbling and athletic ability, I think James Wiseman's a guy with unlimited potential. So I think keeping him for another season, probably as the backup big behind Jalen Duren. Now, I would have liked to see more of possibly him and Duren working together, but one of those would have to improve majorly shooting the ball, or that dual big system will not work. So James Wiseman, for me, definitely a big part of the Pistons' future, either using him as becoming the franchise center next to Duren / power forward, or potentially building him up to be a trade asset for a potential star on the wing. So hopefully James Wiseman continues to improve and make those necessary adjustments to his game. Like, goodness sakes, just get a little better on the defensive end, and please, like, just off season, just shoot, and freaking set picks. Like, actually put your body on somebody. It's like he stops 2 feet in front of the guy, and then he rolls, and he's like, "Here, give me the ball." At that point, nobody's going to pass on the ball. The pick was not very effective, and you're just wasting energy out there sometimes, James Wiseman. But I'm glad they made the trade. Potentially, this guy could be an all-star, or it could be a complete bust out of the league in 3 years. I can see it going either way. All right, RJ Hampton. I had moderate hopes for him, and he's lived up to those moderate hopes. I don't think he's probably going to get re-signed at this point, but he's shown some flashes of really nice defensive play. He just hasn't shown me enough consistently on the offensive end to really say, hey, bring him back. If he did come back, it would probably be end of the bench type of position. But there are worse 11 or 12 type of players on the roster. So RJ Hampton, to me, is probably going to not be re-signed, and he'll probably try to find his way on a different NBA franchise. Rodney McGruder, love the guy, great veteran, has actually played very well in recent memory. I just don't see him coming back. I think the time has come for Rodney McGruder to not be in the Pistons anymore. I just think there's not going to be a roster spot for him, because we're going to try to go out there and sign somebody in free agency and whatnot. We have young players to develop. I think the two veterans that we'll bring back are Bojan and Alec Burks, which leads me to the next player, Corey Joseph. Also, gotta say, I love Corey Joseph. Love his locker room leadership. I also love the way he shoots a high percentage from three-point land. A little slow foot on the defensive end, drives me a bit crazy. But he's hit some big shots. Should have had the game winner the other night when he knocked down that 3 against the Thunder. Then Jalen Williams. got the tip in, and so we lost anyways. I would say Corey Joseph at this point probably not going to be re-signed from the Pistons. He may be Dwayne Casey's teacher's pet, so we may see Corey Joseph back after all. Who knows? But I don't think there should be a roster spot available for him. I think there's just too much of an opportunity cost to have him back next year. But thank you, Corey Joseph, for the time that you served. I see Jaden Ivey being the Robin to Cade Cunningham as Batman, whatever. You know what I'm saying. In year 2 from Jaden Ivey, what I'd like to see is an ability to score the ball with a higher percentage inside at the rim. He actually has really struggled in that department. He started to show that he's able to get to the line a little bit more. He needs to continue to do that. And his ball handling / turnovers, some of his passing, that needs to be tightened up. But I think that'll get better in year 2. We've seen his 3-point shot trending in the right direction, so that's good. The medium range jumper is developing as well. Him and Duren are those core players next to Cade Cunningham. Okay. Next up, Buddy Boeheim. See you later, boss. If you only can make the 3-point shot that you were advertised as being a 3-point marksman, just haven't seen it. So I really don't see there's much of a point of bringing back Buddy Boeheim even for any reasons next year, G League or otherwise. Okay, Isaiah Stewart. Yes, we want Isaiah Stewart back, but with what role will we want Isaiah Stewart? To me, it's hopefully the backup power forward. So my dream scenario is you got Jalen Duren and then Victor Wembanyama. We draft him. Or sign one, Jeremy Grant, or get another player in the draft. But I think Isaiah Stewart's better suited off the bench as a backup power forward. If he's a starter, that's fine. I think he can be if he continues to develop the 3-point shot more consistent next season, he can definitely play alongside Duren. With Isaiah Stewart, it's all about how we able to bring him back, what role, and what kind of contract. We can't overpay for Isaiah Stewart. We do need to keep him, but we need to keep him on a team-friendly contract. Hopefully, be back as a backup role next year. Hopefully, alongside James Wiseman off the bench. I think it's a pretty good backup center and power forward combo where Isaiah Stewart is able to stretch the floor a bit there. So, moving on to Marvin Bagley. Now, Marvin Bagley, to me, at this point, him and James Wiseman are kind of very similar players, and I see them as one as the backup center and one as the third center on the team. And I think there's, at this point, you're going to bring both of them back. But I can see Marvin Bagley, or I can see James Wiseman potentially being a part of a trade, hopefully to bring in some sort of all-star caliber player. I don't know who they'd have to package in that, draft picks, etc. But Marvin Bagley, to me, is great at getting to the rim, great scoring around the basket. He has struggled a little bit. He continues to struggle from the outside and defensively. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like his rim protection has gotten a bit better this year. He's come up with some decent blocks. I think we do keep him on the team for next year. Problem is, unless James Wiseman or Marvin Bagley develops a 3-point shot, it's hard for them to play together. So at this point, keep him on the squad. There's probably going to be some injuries, unfortunately. So we're going to probably need another big anyways. So keep James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley to me. Don't play them together, but one or the other coming in and off the bench, I think will serve nicely for the Pistons next year. Bojan Bogdanovic. So for me, I think he's a starting small forward next year. Okay. Now, depends obviously who we bring in the draft and free agency. I could also see him as a role as our 6th man, which to me would be an ideal situation. Being able to have a player like that who can come in off the bench and be instant offense would be sensational. But if they're going to start him next year, they have to find another wing player, small forward / power forward, that is an exceptional defensive player. That way, it can kind of offset some of the liabilities and weaknesses that Bojan Bogdanovic has. But his role next year needs to be just firing threes, occasionally doing his, ISO ball, which we saw way too much of this year, but he was pretty effective in that as well. But we're going to need Bojan to go out there and get some shots. When Cade's not in the ball game, when Ivy's not in the ball game, when they're not on fire, Bojan's going to catch fire and do some good things for us. So There you go. Next up, Eugene Omoroyi. He's a guy that I think needs to come back to the team. What I love about Eugene, he's another one of those energy guys. And you put up shots. Now, we've seen him struggle at times from three-point range, but if he develops a good three-point shot, Eugene's hustle plays out there, he's a tough player. I think he's got a role that he can carve out for this Piston team. So I'd like to see him develop that next season, and hopefully he'll be back. But the free agency, someone in free agency, obviously, or in the draft could push him out of that. At least I hope to see him in the franchise, maybe in the G League. When we have an injury of some sort, then he can be called up. But Eugene Omoroyi, I think, is a guy that Pistons need to keep in the farm system, so to speak. All right, Piston fans, do me a solid, smash up that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. And I'll see you next time on Detroit Piston Me Off.